Central Kentucky. This is a land built on ghosts. Beneath the rolling hills of Edmonson County, the earth is not solid. It is a honeycomb, a labyrinth of limestone dissolved over millions of years by silent, patient water. They call it the karst. To the people living on the surface, the caves are more than just geology. They are a crop. This is the era of the cave wars. Mammoth Cave is the titan, drawing thousands of tourists with their pockets full of cash. But if you own a patch of dirt nearby, and you can find a hole in that dirt that leads to a cathedral of stone, you can be a rich man. You can leave the plow behind. You can stop scratching a living out of the stubborn soil. Among the men who hunt the dark, one name is a legend: Floyd Collins. Floyd is 37 years old, lean as a whip, with eyes that seem adjusted to a different spectrum of light. He doesn't just visit caves, he belongs to them. While other men fear the squeeze, Floyd craves it. He possesses a supernatural sense of direction in the absolute black. He can feel the breath of a cave, the slight movement of air that signals a massive chamber hidden behind a narrow crack. He is a man driven by a singular burning vision, to find a great crystal cave closer to the main highway. A cave so beautiful it will dwarf Mammoth Cave and make the Collins family the kings of Kentucky. But the earth does not give up its treasures for free. It demands a price in sweat, in blood, and eventually, in soul. January 30th, 1925. The air above ground is bitter. A damp, bone-chilling cold has settled over the Kentucky hills. Floyd stands on the property of Bleecker Doyle. He has a contract. If he finds a commercial cave here, they split the profits. He carries a single kerosene lantern, a small pickaxe, and a bag of crackers. He is wearing a cotton shirt and overalls. No helmet, no radio, no backup. He looks at a small, unremarkable opening in the ground. It looks like a groundhog hole, partially hidden by frozen briars. Most men would walk past it. Floyd smells the draft. "She's breathing," he whispers. He thinks about his father, Lee. He thinks about the years of being cave poor. He thinks about the crystal formations he's seen in his dreams. White, translucent flowers of gypsum that never see the sun. He enters the hole. He doesn't walk. He slithers. The cave, which he calls Sand Cave, is not like the grand limestone galleries of Mammoth. It is a treacherous mix of sandstone and limestone. It is unstable. It is loose. But Floyd is 150 pounds of pure muscle and instinct. He slides his shoulders through gaps that would panic a normal man. He exhales to shrink his chest, inching forward through the wet, cold mud. He is 50 feet down, then 60. The world of the sun, the wind, and his family is gone. There is only the smell of damp earth and the flickering yellow heartbeat of his lantern. As Floyd descends, the trip becomes a psychological meditation. Why does a man do this? For Floyd, the cave is the only place where the world makes sense. On the surface, there are taxes and failing crops, and the pressure of a society that views him as a peculiar hill dweller. But in the dark, Floyd is a pioneer. He is the first human being to see these walls since the beginning of time. He reaches a vertical drop. He climbs down a series of narrow ledges, his fingers gripping the slick stone. He is 150 feet underground now. The silence is absolute. It is a silence so heavy you can hear the blood pumping in your ears. It is the silence of the tomb, but to Floyd, it is the silence of the womb. He reaches a crawlway. It is barely 9 inches high. He has to turn his head sideways to fit. His cheek is pressed against the wet sand. He pushes his lantern ahead of him. "Just a little further," he mutters. His voice doesn't echo. The low ceiling swallows it. He is looking for the great cathedral. He is convinced that just beyond this squeeze, The cave opens into a room that will change his life. He is fueled by cave fever. It is a delirium of hope that blinds a man to the weight of the mountain above him. He makes it through the squeeze. The walls widen. The ceiling lifts. Floyd stands up and raises his lantern. His breath catches. He has found it. Not the great cathedral yet, but a beautiful hidden grotto draped in translucent flowstone. The water drips from the ceiling like liquid diamonds. He sits for a moment, eating his crackers in the yellow light. He is happy. He is a king in a golden palace. He thinks about the sign he will hang on the road. Collins Sand Cave, wonder of the world. He thinks about the suit he will buy, the house for his parents. He stays too long. He lingers in the triumph. The kerosene in his lantern is running low. The light begins to flicker, the shadows on the walls dancing like mocking spirits. "Time to go," he says. He turns back to the narrow crawlway. He has to go back up the way he came. He enters the squeeze. He is moving faster now, his mind already on the surface, on the warm fire and the bragging he'll do at the general store. He is 125 feet from the entrance. He is tired. His muscles are cramping from the cold. His foot brushes against a small protruding rock on the floor of the crawlway. It is a keystone, a 6-pound piece of limestone that has been wedged in the sand for 1,000 years. It shifts. It happens in a fraction of a second. As Floyd's foot dislodges the stone, a larger slab of rock, no bigger than a suitcase but weighing nearly 100 pounds, slides down from the ceiling of the crawlway. It doesn't crush his leg. It pins it. Floyd is lying on his stomach, his arms outstretched in front of him. The rock has wedged his left ankle against the floor of the tunnel. He flinches, trying to pull his leg free. The movement causes more sand and small pebbles to rain down from the ceiling. He stops. He freezes. The silence returns. But now, it is different. It is predatory. He reaches back with his hand, but he can't reach his foot. The tunnel is too narrow for him to bend his knee or turn around. He is a cork in a bottle. He tries to kick with his right foot, but the rock is seated firmly. The more he struggles, the more the loose sand packs in around the slab, cementing it in place. His lantern, knocked over in the struggle, flickers one last time and dies. Total darkness. The kind of darkness that has weight. Floyd Collins, the greatest caver in Kentucky, is trapped. "Help!" he screams. The sound travels 10 feet and dies in the mud. He is 125 feet under the earth. It is Friday evening. Nobody knows he is there. The trip has ended. The disaster has begun. Floyd lies in the dark. The cold is the first thing he notices. The cave is a constant 54 degrees, but when you're lying in wet mud, 54 degrees is a slow executioner. He begins to shiver. He tries to keep his mind sharp. He counts. He prays. He thinks about the rock. He tries to visualize it. If he can just move it 1 inch. He pushes with his shoulders, trying to back out. He leaves the skin of his elbows on the rocks. He moves nowhere. He begins to realize the geometry of his predicament. He is tilted slightly downward. The blood is rushing to his head. He hears a sound. Drip, drip, drip. Water is trickling from the ceiling, landing directly on his face. In the great cathedral, he thought the water looked like diamonds. Now each drop feels like a needle. He thinks about his brother, Homer. Homer will come looking. "Just wait for Homer," he whispers into the mud. He closes his eyes, but the darkness remains the same. He waits for the sun to rise, forgetting that for him, the sun may never rise again. Saturday morning, January 31st. The sun rises over the Collins farmhouse, but there is no smoke from Floyd's chimney. Lee Collins, Floyd's father, looks toward the hills. He knows his son's habits. Floyd is a creature of the dark, but he usually returns by dawn to brag about his finds. The family gathers. There is a quiet, vibrating anxiety in the kitchen. "He went to Bleecker Doyle's place," someone says. Homer Collins, Floyd's younger brother, stands up. Homer is different from Floyd, more social, less obsessed. But he loves his brother with a fierce, quiet loyalty. He heads to the Doyle farm. He finds Floyd's coat hanging on a bush near the small, unremarkable hole in the ground. Homer leans into the opening. He smells the damp earth. He hears nothing but the wind in the trees. "Floyd," he bellows. A faint, muffled sound drifts up from the depths. It doesn't sound like a man. It sounds like a ghost. Homer. "I'm caught." The trip is over. The reality of the disaster breaks over Homer like a cold wave. His brother is not just in the cave. He is of the cave. Homer doesn't wait for a team. He doesn't wait for tools. He grabs a lantern and slides into the hole. Homer is a big man, and the squeeze that Floyd negotiated with ease is a nightmare for him. He feels the limestone ribs of the earth scraping against his chest. He reaches the 150-foot mark. He sees a pair of boots. Floyd is lying face down, pinned in a narrow, downward-sloping chute. Only his legs and his lower torso are visible. The rest of him is swallowed by the tight. "Floyd, talk to me." "The rock, Homer, my foot, it's got me." Homer tries to reach past Floyd's body, but the tunnel is too narrow. There's no room for two men. There is barely room for one. Homer begins to dig with his bare hands. He scratches at the wet sand around Floyd's legs. Every handful of dirt he removes is replaced by two more sliding down from the ceiling. The cave is alive. It is a living cave, made of loose sandstone and debris. It is not a solid fortress. It is a pile of rubble held together by gravity and luck. Homer realizes he cannot pull Floyd out by force. He'll break his brother's leg, or worse, trigger a total collapse. He climbs out to get supplies. He returns with a bottle of milk and some crackers. He has to feed Floyd like a bird. He crawls down, pushes the bottle past Floyd's shoulder, and listens to the sound of his brother drinking in the dark. "Is it day or night, Homer?" "It's Saturday, Floyd. The sun's up." "It's cold," Floyd whispers. "Tell Mama I'm okay." This is the human story in the dark. Between the brothers, rank and ego vanish. They are two small boys again, playing in the dirt, except the dirt is 100 feet deep and weighs 1,000,000 tons. Homer stays as long as he can, talking to Floyd about the surface, about the cows, about anything to keep the cave silence from swallowing Floyd's mind. But the air is getting thin. The kerosene lamp is eating the oxygen. Homer has to leave. As he climbs out, he promises, "I'll get a crew, Floyd. We'll have you out by supper." It is the first of many promises the cave will force them to break. By Saturday evening, the news has hit the town of Cave City. In the 1920s, news travels at the speed of the telegraph and the gossip at the general store. Floyd Collins is caught in Sand Cave. The professional cavers from Mammoth Cave arrive. They are the elite, the men who know the stone. They look at the opening. They look at the geology. "It's a death trap," one says. "That's not a cave. That's a rock pile." But Floyd is a hero to the locals. He's one of them. A crowd begins to gather at the mouth of the cave. Men bring picks and shovels. Women bring coffee and blankets. A fire is built near the entrance. The smoke drifts into the hole, a bitter reminder of the world Floyd can no longer reach. The rescue is no longer a family matter. It is becoming a community siege. But the mountain is watching. Above ground, the trip section of the rescue is almost festive. There is a sense of can-do American spirit. We have the tools. We have the men. We'll just pull him out. They don't understand the squeeze. They don't understand that underground, physics is different. Homer watches the newcomers. He sees the arrogance of the men who think they can beat the karst. He goes back down for the fourth time that day. Floyd is weaker. The hypothermia is setting in. His speech is slurring. Homer, I had a dream. I saw a golden cathedral. There were angels. They were holding lanterns. Floyd is starting to slip into the cave delirium. Homer shakes him. Stay with me, Floyd. Don't look at the angels. Look at me. Homer realizes that the rescue isn't just a physical race. It's a race to keep Floyd's soul from drifting too deep into the limestone. He starts to sing a hymn. The sound of the singing drifts up the shaft, haunting the rescuers on the surface. It is the sound of a funeral before the death. Sunday morning, February 1st. A small, brave man named William Skeets Miller arrives. Miller is a reporter for the Louisville Courier-Journal. He is tiny, barely 120 pounds. He sees the situation. He sees that the big men can't reach Floyd. I'll go, Miller says. He isn't a caver. He's a journalist. But he has the squeeze in his blood now. He crawls down. He reaches Floyd. He is the first person to see Floyd's face. Floyd is covered in mud. His eyes are wide, reflecting Miller's light. He looks like a creature of the deep sea. I'm Skeets, the reporter says. Help me, Skeets, please. Miller tries to work a jack under the rock, but there is no room to move his arms. He spends hours in the mud, talking to Floyd, taking notes for the story that will soon captivate the entire world. But as Miller is working, he hears a sound. A low, grinding groan. Deep in the walls of Sand Cave, the moisture from the breathing of the rescuers and the heat of the lanterns has begun to melt the glue holding the sandstone together. The mountain is shifting. The trip is over. The rescue is about to become a tragedy. Monday, February 2nd, 1925. The crowd at the mouth of Sand Cave has swelled into the hundreds. The air is thick with the smell of coal smoke and the metallic tang of anxiety. Skeets Miller, the 120-pound reporter, has become the world's only lifeline to the man in the mud. Miller is not a hero by trade, he is a man of words. But as he slides back into the hole for the 10th time, he has become a creature of action. He carries a small electric light and a bottle of coffee laced with sugar. The descent is a physical assault. The walls of the chute are slick with a mixture of groundwater and human sweat. Miller reaches the squeeze. He has to exhale until his lungs are flat to pass through the limestone ribs. He reaches Floyd. The sight is a nightmare. Floyd is now unrecognizable as a man of the surface. His face is a mask of yellow clay. His beard is matted with grit. Only his eyes, bloodshot and darting, reveal the consciousness trapped within the mountain. Skeets, Floyd whispers. It is a dry, rattling sound. I saw the sun today, in the dark. It was so bright. Miller knows the cave madness is taking hold. Floyd is no longer fighting the rock, he is merging with it. Miller begins to feed him. It is a slow, agonizing ritual. A sip of coffee, a bite of a soaked cracker. Miller has to hold Floyd's head, bracing his own body against the ceiling to keep from sliding further down the chute. They're digging, Floyd, thousands of them. They've got a drill coming. They've got the best engineers in the country. It's too heavy, Skeets. The mountain, it's tired of me. As Miller speaks, a pebble falls from the ceiling, then another. Plink, plink. The ceiling above Floyd is not solid rock. It is a hanging garden of loose sandstone and boulders held together by the cold. But the heat of the rescuers' bodies and the lanterns is thawing the frost. The cave is beginning to weep. Miller feels the moisture on the back of his neck. He looks up. The slab above Floyd's head, a half-ton of jagged limestone, is vibrating. Miller realizes this might be the last time anyone speaks to Floyd. He pulls out his notepad, his fingers numbed by the 54-degree dampness. Floyd, What do you want the world to know? Floyd's eyes fix on the light. Tell them. I was looking for beauty. Tell them the crystal cave is there. I saw it. It's just past the rock. Even now, pinned by the earth, Floyd is an explorer. His obsession is the only thing keeping his heart beating. He isn't a victim in his own mind. He is a discoverer who has been delayed. And tell Homer. Tell him to go home. It's too cold for him down here. Miller feels a surge of grief so sharp it nearly chokes him. He reaches out and touches Floyd's forehead. It is like touching wet marble. I'll be back, Floyd. I'll be back with a jack. As Miller backs out of the squeeze, he hears Floyd start to hum a song, a low, distorted melody that vibrates through the very stone of Kentucky. Tuesday, February 3rd, 2 a.m., above ground, a carnival has begun to form. Hot dog vendors have arrived. Preachers are holding revivals by the fire. The human story is being sold in editions across the country. But underground, the physics of the disaster is reaching its breaking point. A rescue team of 3 men is in the shaft, attempting to clear a new path around the squeeze. Suddenly, a sound like a distant freight train rumbles through the earth. K-boom! The men in the shaft scramble upward. Out! Get out! She's coming down! A massive section of the tunnel, about 50 feet above Floyd, has collapsed. A ceiling of sandstone has dropped, filling the passage with hundreds of tons of debris. The lifeline is severed. Homer Collins tries to dive back into the hole, screaming his brother's name, but the men hold him back. The squeeze is gone. The passage to Floyd is now a solid wall of rock and sand. The news hits the crowd like a physical blow. Skeets. Miller stands at the entrance, his face white with shock. He was the last person to touch him. He can still feel the dampness of Floyd's forehead on his palm. He's still alive, Homer screams. He's under the dirt, but he's alive. He can breathe through the cracks. The engineers confer. The consensus is grim. The original entrance is now impassable. To reach Floyd, they have to start over. They have to dig a vertical shaft, a rescue well, through the solid limestone of the hillside. They estimate it will take days, maybe a week. Floyd is 125 feet down. He has no food, no water, no light. And now he has no voices. He is in the absolute primordial dark. The disaster has evolved into a siege of time. We shift perspective. We go back down, past the collapse, into the small tomb-like space where Floyd Collins remains. The sound of the collapse was a roar that deafened him. Now, there is only the silence. He is no longer cold. He is numb. He feels the weight of the air pressing against his chest. He thinks he hears Homer. He thinks he hears the angels again. He begins to talk to the rock that holds his foot. You're a heavy one, aren't you? He is no longer afraid. The terror has been replaced by a strange, drifting peace. He imagines the crystal cave is opening up behind him. He imagines he is sliding out of his body, leaving the mud and the overalls behind, and flying into the golden cathedral. Above him, the first shovels of the new shaft hit the ground. Thud, thud, thud. To Floyd, it sounds like a heartbeat, but it is a heart that is beating too slowly. Wednesday, February 4th to Sunday, February 8th. The hillside above Sand Cave has vanished. In its place is a nightmare city. The story of the man trapped in the bowels of the earth has become the first global media event of the radio age. 20,000 people have descended on this remote patch of Kentucky. They come in Model Ts, on horseback, and on foot. The National Guard has been called in to maintain order, fixed bayonets glinting in the firelight to keep the curious away from the treacherous hole. There are hot dog stands. There are balloon sellers. There are moonshine runners operating out of the back of wagons. Image. A grainy black and white photo of the massive crowd and tents surrounding the sand cave entrance. The atmosphere is a sickening blend of a revival meeting and a county fair, and in the center of it all is the shaft. The engineers have decided that the only way to reach Floyd is to dig a vertical rescue shaft, 3 feet wide, parallel to the tunnel where he is pinned. But the Kentucky limestone is not cooperating. The human story on the surface is one of frustration and hubris. The rescue leaders, now including the governor's personal representatives and professional mining engineers from the coal fields, believe in the power of the machine. They bring in a massive power drill, but the vibration of the drill causes more landslides in the loose sandstone below. "Stop the engines," Homer Collins screams. "You're burying him deeper." The drill is silenced. The rescue returns to the primitive, men with picks and shovels. They work in shifts, 24 hours a day. The sound of the digging, clink, scrape, thud, becomes the pulse of the hill, but they are only making 6 inches an hour. Floyd is 125 feet down. The math of the rescue is a slow-motion execution. Homer Collins has become a ghost. He refuses to leave the site. He refuses to eat anything but scraps. He sits by the mouth of the new shaft, staring into the dark. He is the only one who refuses to accept the silence. "He's talking to me," Homer tells the reporters. "I can hear him through the rocks. He's telling me he's thirsty." The reporters, including Skeets Miller, watch Homer with a mixture of pity and awe. Miller's stories have made Floyd a household name, but Miller feels like a vulture. He is winning prizes while the man who gave him the story is rotting in a tomb. Skeets. Miller looks at the carnival, the laughing tourists, the vendors, and writes, "The hill is a desecration. We are dancing on a man's grave while he is still in it." The disconnect between the festive surface and the freezing, muddy reality 100 feet below is the true disaster of Sand Cave. We descend again, past the rock fall, past the wall of mud. It is day 10. Floyd Collins is no longer a man of the 20th century. He has regressed. He is in the 3rd stage of isolation. He no longer feels the cold. He no longer feels the hunger. His brain, starved of oxygen and sensory input, is creating a masterpiece of delusion. He is no longer trapped. In his mind, he has made it through the squeeze. He is walking through the Golden Cathedral. He is touching walls of white gypsum that feel like warm silk. He sees his mother. He sees the girl he never married. He is having a conversation with the rock on his foot. "You're getting lighter," he whispers. His breathing is a wet, shallow rattle. The cave pneumonia is filling his lungs. Every few hours, the vibration of the digging above sends a shiver through the stone. Floyd smiles. He thinks it's the sound of the angel's wings. A massive winter storm hits the hill. The rain turns the site into a sea of red Kentucky mud. The rescue shaft becomes a well. The men in the pit are working in waist-deep water, bailing with buckets, their hands raw and blue. The sides of the shaft begin to cave in. "Brace it! For God's sake, brace it!" The rescue is now a war against the weather. The crowd thins as the rain turns to sleet. The vendors pack up. The carnival light fades, leaving only the grim, flickering torches of the diggers. In the silence between the gusts of wind, the hill seems to groan. It is the sound of the earth settling, the sound of the trap closing for good. Sunday, February 15th. The rescuers have reached the 100-foot mark. They are close. They are so close they can hear the hollow echo of the original tunnel. But the air coming out of the shaft has changed. It no longer smells of wet sand and kerosene. It smells of the end. Homer Collins stands at the edge. He looks at the moon, sharp and cold in the winter sky. "He's gone, Homer," a National Guardsman says softly, laying a hand on his shoulder. "No," Homer says. He's just waiting for the light. Beneath them, in the absolute black, the humming has stopped. The disaster is over. The rescue is about to become a recovery. Monday, February 16th, 1925, 1:30 p.m. The air on the hillside is stagnant. The crowds have thinned to a few hundred diehards and the exhausted National Guard. Deep in the rescue shaft, 125 feet down, two miners named Ed Brenner and Kelly Hill are swinging their picks in a rhythm that has become mechanical. Suddenly, Brenner's pick doesn't thud against clay, it pierces through. A rush of cold, stagnant air whistles out of the hole. It is the breath of the cave, escaping after 2 weeks of being sealed. The miners widen the hole until it is large enough for a man to crawl through. "Floyd?" Brenner calls out. There is no answer, only the sound of water dripping somewhere in the distance. Brenner slides through the opening into the original passage. He crawls 10 feet, his lantern casting long, distorted shadows. He sees the boots. Brenner reaches the body. Floyd Collins is still pinned by the same 6-pound rock. He is tilted downward, his face resting against his left shoulder. He looks like a statue carved from the Kentucky mud. Brenner places a hand on Floyd's chest. There is no warmth. There is no movement. Floyd is cold. Not the cold of the cave, but the cold of the earth itself. Medical examiners would later estimate he had been dead for at least 3 days. He likely died on Friday, February 13th, exactly 2 weeks after he entered the hole. The cave pneumonia and the starvation had finally silenced the man who beat the dark. Brenner backs out of the hole, his face white. "He's gone," he whispers to the men in the shaft. The word travels up the bucket line, person to person, until it reaches the surface. He's gone. Above ground, the reaction is not an explosion of grief, but a heavy, crushing silence. The carnival has truly ended. Homer Collins stands by the shaft. He doesn't cry. He doesn't scream. He simply sits down in the mud and stares at the hole. The reporters who had spent 18 days writing about the struggle for life now have to write about the end. Skeets Miller, the small man who had held Floyd's hand in the dark, turns away. He refuses to go down. He wants to remember Floyd as a living man, humming a tune in the flickering yellow light. The National Guard begins to pack up the tents. The vendors vanish. The human story is over. Now, there is only the logistical problem. The engineers descend to evaluate the recovery of the body. It is a grim assessment. The rock is still wedged. The tunnel is still collapsing. To remove Floyd, they would have to risk the lives of more men, potentially burying them alongside him. Lee Collins, Floyd's father, is consulted. He looks at the hillside, scarred by the rescue efforts, the piles of red dirt, and the broken machinery. "He loved the caves," Lee says. "Let the cave have him." The decision is made. Floyd Collins will not be brought to the surface. They will use the cave as his coffin. They place a copper casket lid over the opening of the chute where he lies. They say a short prayer. Then, they begin to fill the shaft. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of the dirt falling back into the hole is the final curtain. For a few days, the hill is empty. The rain washes away the footprints of the 20,000. The grass begins to grow back over the red scars in the earth. But the story of Floyd Collins refuses to stay buried. A local preacher holds a memorial service at the mouth of the cave. He speaks of the golden cathedral Floyd was looking for. He didn't find the cave he wanted, the preacher says, but he found the cave that was meant for him. But the Collins family is restless. The idea of Floyd lying in the mud 125 feet down begins to gnaw at them. A year later, Homer and Lee will return with their own crew. They will do what the state of Kentucky and the National Guard could not. They will go back into the dark to bring their brother home. But for now, In February 1925, the mountain is silent. Floyd Collins is finally at rest in the only place he ever truly felt at peace. We end this part with a slow pullback from the entrance of Sand Cave. The fire is out. The crowd is gone. The wind whistles through the briars, the same wind that Floyd smelled on that Friday morning. The earth has closed its mouth. The disaster is now a legend. But beneath the soil, in the absolute black, the water still drips. Drip, drip, drip. It is the clock of the cave, and it has all the time in the world. April 1925. 2 months after the cave was sealed. The silence on the hillside was too much for the Collins family to bear. Lee Collins, haunted by the image of his son pinned in the cold mud, could not sleep. He sold the rights to the Sand Cave story to help fund a private recovery. Homer Collins, the brother who had fed Floyd in the dark, led the team. They didn't have the National Guard or the eyes of 20,000 spectators. They had only shovels, a sense of duty, and the grim knowledge of the terrain. They reopened the rescue shaft. They moved slowly, bracing every inch. On April 23rd, they reached the copper lid. Homer was the one who went in. He found Floyd exactly as he had left him. The cave had acted as a natural refrigerator. Floyd was preserved, his face still a mask of yellow clay but peaceful. They worked for hours to move the rock, the 6-pound stone that had changed history. With the right leverage and enough space, it popped free with a sickening thud. Floyd was finally light. They carried him to the surface in a burlap sling. As he broke the plane of the earth for the last time, the sun was shining. Homer wept. "He's out, Pa. We got him out." But the disaster of Floyd Collins didn't end with his death. It shifted into something stranger. Floyd was buried initially on the family farm, but the cave wars were still raging. The property was sold to a man named Dr. Harry Thomas. Thomas didn't see a grave. He saw an opportunity. He exhumed Floyd's body and placed it in a glass-topped casket inside Great Crystal Cave, the very cave Floyd had discovered and loved. For years, tourists paid 50 cents to walk down into the dark and stare at the greatest cave explorer ever known. Floyd had become a permanent part of the attraction. He had wanted the world to see his cave. Now, the world saw it with him as the centerpiece. It was a macabre, tragic irony. The man who sought fame in the dark was now a prisoner of it forever. In 1929, the story took a turn into the truly bizarre. Grave robbers broke into Crystal Cave and stole Floyd's body. They were likely competitors in the cave wars, or perhaps just souvenir hunters. Bloodhounds were brought in. They found Floyd in a nearby field, his body missing a leg. He was returned to his glass coffin, but a heavy chain was wrapped around the casket and padlocked to the cave floor. He remained there for decades. Children would go on school trips to Crystal Cave, peering through the glass at the leathery skin and the closed eyes of the man who had been the most famous person in America for 18 days in 1925. The human story had become a sideshow, but the karst eventually reclaims its own. In 1961, the National Park Service purchased Great Crystal Cave. They closed the commercial tours. They looked at the chained coffin and decided that the siege of Sand Cave had gone on long enough. They moved the coffin to a secluded area of the cave, away from the public eye. Finally, in 1989, 64 years after he first slid into the hole at Sand Cave, the family and the Park Service reached an agreement. Floyd Collins was brought to the surface one last time. He was buried in the cemetery of the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church. As the casket was lowered into the soil, the Cavers of Kentucky stood in a circle. They didn't sing hymns. They simply stood in the silence he knew so well. The man was finally deeper than the cave. What remains of Floyd Collins? Sand Cave is sealed now. You can't find the hole where the squeeze began. The Briars have won. But if you go to the Kentucky karst on a quiet night, when the air is still and the hills are breathing, you can still feel the weight of the story. Floyd taught the world about the fragility of life. He taught us about the strange, beautiful obsession that drives a man to seek the golden cathedral at any cost. He remains the patron saint of caverns, a reminder that the earth is not a playground, but a living, moving entity that demands respect. The Great Carnival of 1925 is a footnote in history, but the image of the man in the mud remains. He is the symbol of the individual against the mountain. We are a species that cannot stand the dark. We build lights. We dig shafts. We turn the tragedies of others into a circus so we don't have to feel the weight of the stone. But Floyd Collins didn't fear the dark. He sought it. He believed that if he went deep enough, he would find something that the sun could never show him. Maybe he was right. Maybe in those final days, when the hum of the world faded and the angels began to sing, he found his crystal cave. The crowd is long gone. The hot dog stands are dust. The National Guard has marched away. But the mountain is still there, and Floyd is finally home. The siege is over. Sleep well, Floyd. The earth has finally let you go.